Hi and welcome to another gaming video. And in today's video, a bit of an odd title really, I regret buying my Nintendo Switch Lite. So I want to hold my hands up and sort of backtrack on a lot of the things that I've said in previous videos about the Switch Lite. And I do regret buying it, but I don't. I entered the Switch world very late. I didn't get into it until 2023, and I bought a Switch Lite. And I went for a Lite because I'm a big fan of handheld gaming, as you know if you've been watching my channel. I had no interest in hooking up a Switch to a TV. I liked the compact size of it, so I bought a Switch Lite. And everybody said that I was going to regret it. But I didn't. I loved it. It was superb. It just did everything I needed in a small, compact form, and it was great. But my gaming habits have changed in the last sort of 6 months. I decided to slim down my console collection and slim it down. Well, I slimmed it all the way down to just owning a Switch Lite. And I thought if a Switch is going to be my only console for playing games on, then I'm going to upgrade it. And I didn't want to go for a Switch 2, so I went for a Switch OLED. And while some of the issues that held me off from buying a Switch in the first place are still there, so you've got, with the detachable Joy-Cons, it makes the whole system just a little bit creaky, not so rock solid like you get with the unibody design of the Switch Lite. It's something I've gotten used to. It still does feel a little bit sort of when you're playing, but it really hasn't caused me any issues. The same with not having a proper D-pad on the left hand side of the Switch like you do on the Switch Lite. That really hasn't caused me any issues either. I've played plenty of games on the OLED and not really noticed the lack of a full directional pad. But since owning my Switch OLED, which I only bought probably about 4 months ago, I've played it a lot more than I'd ever did my Switch Lite, but not for the obvious reason. So yes, my new Switch OLED has got TV capabilities. You can hook it into a dock and play it on a TV. It's got better battery life than a Switch Lite. But both of those are not really relevant in such a way, because I only play for like 2 or 3 hours at a time. The Switch Lite covered that, as does the Switch OLED. But the big thing about owning a Switch or a Switch OLED is that you can put it in a dock. And it's not because I want to play it on a TV. It's because when you put it in the dock, it charges it. It's charging when you're not in use. I mean, if you're playing it on a TV, it's still charging it. But I play a lot in handheld mode. When I'm finished with my Switch OLED, I just pop it back in the dock. It's a safe place to keep it, and it charges it. And that is the big key reason I think that I've played my Switch OLED more than I played my Switch Lite. And it's because every time I want to go to play it, it's charged. With a Switch Lite, you've got to find a plug and you've got to plug it in. And no end of times I forgot to charge my Switch Lite, thought, oh, I've got a bit of time, I'm going to do a bit of gaming, picked it up and it's dead. So having the Switch OLED ready to go all the time, because it's been on the dock, it is fantastic. Now there are obviously a couple of other things about the Switch OLED over the Switch Lite. I did like the compact size of the Switch Lite, but I've gotten used to having the larger sized OLED, and I think it's just a bit more comfortable to play, especially if you've got larger hands. The screen size, I really do enjoy that, so I went from a 5.5 inch on the Switch Lite all the way up to a 7-inch screen on the Switch OLED. I skipped the original Switch with its 6.2. That is a big jump in screen size. The fact that it's OLED, I think that's a little bit more of a sales pitch. But it is a very nice looking screen. But I am kind of thankful for the Switch Lite. It got me into the Switch market, something that I'd stayed away from for quite some time. Like I said, it was 2023 before I got into the Switch market. I bought a Switch Lite. I didn't pay very much for it. It got me into playing Switch games and everything that comes with a Switch. And upgrading to a Switch OLED, well, it's the same platform, so I just moved all my saved games across, my accounts across, and it's all there, carried on playing. But yeah, in ways I do kind of regret buying a Switch Lite to start with. The experience of playing a Switch or a Switch OLED, especially the OLED, is so much better than it is on the Switch Lite. Of course, you've got the fact that it's a small, compact, very solid console as the Switch Lite, but there are so many more things you can do with a full-size Switch or a Switch OLED. You've got the bigger screen, you've got on the OLED, you've got the OLED screen, you've got the fact that you can hook it up to a TV or you can use it in tabletop mode. It's got a stand. I mean, with the OLED, you do get more internal storage at 64 gig rather than the 32 gig that you get in a Switch Lite, but you only get 32 gig in a regular Switch anyway. And yeah, that is it, really, because the Switch OLED is fantastic. And if I hadn't been quite so stubborn when I was getting into the Switch market and I listened to other people, I was told repeatedly that at some point I'm going to regret buying a Switch Lite. And I do and I don't. I like the Switch Lite, it was a great experience, but playing Switch games on a Switch or a Switch OLED, it just gives you a greater experience, and I am absolutely loving it. I play my Switch OLED way more than I did my Lite. And some of that is down to it's more comfortable to play, and the battery is always charged. So yeah, if you're looking to get into the Switch, especially now that the Switch 2 out, I mean, I wouldn't discount the Switch Lite. It is a fantastic console. You can't hook it to a TV. You do have to find a separate charger, but it is still a fantastic console, and you can pick them up dirt cheap. I paid about £60–70 for my Switch Lite. I know they've probably gone up a little bit with the release of the Switch 2 and everyone's interested in one, but an OLED Switch is going to set you back twice as much as that. I mean, you could always go in the middle and just pick up a regular Switch, but if you're looking for the full Switch experience, grab a Switch OLED and really harness the power of everything that comes with a Switch. So I do regret buying my Switch Lite just a little bit, but I am thankful for it getting me into the Switch market. Link, like, subscribe, enjoy.